Let's separate the impactful from the insignificant with one simple question. News or noise?
And a solid list for us today. We'll start with New England camp, where there is actually a sort of news of the day piece to this, Michael, I want to get to in a second, involving one of the key members of the defense and some of the back and forth that happened yesterday in camp. But first off, it's new head coach Jerod Mayo admits that he really hasn't had much communication with Bill Belichick since taking the reins as head coach. Here was the soundbite from Coach Mayo.
Did Bill Belichick reach out to you after you got the gig, after it was announced?
So that's a tough question. We haven't had a lot of communication since I've been here, and honestly, for me, my focus is the players. It's all about the players, and I learned a lot from Bill. I honestly did, X's and O's, and also structure and practice and things like that. But like I said, it's a different time, it's a different era, and hopefully we can have that same success.
So TLDR, Michael, no, there's not been any communication there.
Well, why would there be? I mean, Bill has basically brought Mayo into the league, let him be the linebacker, taught him how to play the position, brought him into coaching, spent time the last 2 years preparing him to become a head coach. I think the phone rings two ways, I don't think it's a hard question at all. Everything that Mayo has done since Bill has left the building is to try to distance himself from Bill. So why would Bill want to call, or why would Bill call? I mean, I think Mayo's going to wish he had called Bill. But Bill's done everything that he could, and that's usually the way Bill operates. He's tried to make other coaches successful, whether it's Brian Daboll, whether it's Josh McDaniels. He's welcomed them in and coached them just like he has Mayo. But now Mayo, as Al Davis used to tell me all the time, Ben, at some point, kids, you're going to have to play in the game, and Mayo's going to have to play in the game. And we saw yesterday that Judon's not happy with how he's playing the game, and this is going to go and manifest itself forward. Gottschall hasn't done anything at their training camp. They've got a bunch of injuries, some of them self-inflicted, whether it's Barmore coming off of a problem, Tavai having another recurrence of a knee injury. The list goes on and on. So it's going to be fascinating to sit back and watch as you replace the greatest coach of all time with a man with very little experience.
And it also leads into what you just mentioned, the name Matthew Judon, one of the keys to that defensive line and unit as a whole, who yesterday, very, very animated, the report from Mike Rice, Patriot beat reporter for ESPN, talking very, very emotionally with head coach Jerod Mayo, with the new VP of player personnel and Elliot Wolf, and also the director of player personnel, Matt Groh. Contract still up in the air for Jerod Mayo, is one of his top linebackers, in Matthew Judon, yet to get it done, though. And it also kind of speaks to, it's a new era, right? Would this have happened if Bill Belichick's on the sideline? I kind of think not.
No. Yeah, no, it wouldn't have happened. They would have been way more organized. But look, here's the reality. Judon did a really good job last year of trying to keep the young players in tune, specifically Barmore, who was, kind of get him in line. And really, Judon is responsible for Barmore having this incredible contract, certainly for a guy who's had durability issues throughout his NFL career. So I think Peppers, too, just got a contract extension. Look, they need Judon. They have a ton of cap room, but they have to stand alone. One thing I think you feel, it's always easy to think you can replace a legendary coach. Try.
That's such a good way to look at it for a New England team that has a lot of question marks here in 2024. Final year of a contract calls for a base salary of $6.5 million for Judon, who had the season-ending injury in Week 4 last year. Okay, more news or noise. Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes. This is the quote we have. Not necessarily when the question was, is Patrick Mahomes underpaid? I think we do a great job of managing my money to be able to pay me a lot of money and keep a good team around me. For Patrick Mahomes, who was able to restructure his deal last offseason, and now the $210+ million that he's getting is now coming in. It'll be as late as 2026 as of the current structure of the deal. And Mahomes, something you touched on yesterday, Michael, clearly trying to put team first in this instance and keep Kansas City as competitive as humanly possible, going for a third straight Super Bowl.
I think he's such a great teammate. He understands the importance of winning, far exceeds individual honors. I wish more athletes had this. Look, he's not underpaid. He's not the highest paid, but he's not underpaid. He knows he can make more money outside the arena of football doing other things, representing Adidas or whatever he does. But to me, winning is all that matters. Look, Dan Marino would trade in everything to have that one opportunity to put a Super Bowl ring on his finger. Something as great as he was, he couldn't do.
For the entire roster for Kansas City, where do you have them power rated 1 to 32 as we start the year?
Well, it starts with the quarterback, and obviously he's the best quarterback in the league. But overall, their talent level, I mean, if you put somebody else behind this offensive line, I'm not sure it would be at an elite level, especially at the tackle position where Taylor, and we're not sure who the left tackle is, whether it's the rookie from BYU or Moses from Oklahoma. So Morris from Oklahoma, excuse me. So I think to me, and the receiving core is average. I think Kelsey, whether he can play at his age and his offseason, that remains to be seen. I think they're a good roster, certainly, but, that cherry on top is called Patrick Mahomes.
And that's what is always fascinating about breaking down Kansas City, how much of a roster ranking is purely just Patrick Mahomes, how much is the rest of a group that has had a lot of holes to fill on, especially on the rest of the offense, like you point out, running back, not anything to get excited about either as you go down the list on KC. Okay, next news or noise piece here as we start the show. Yes, the New York Giants. We're ready. I know you've been excited for the end of the offseason version of Hard Knocks. That is not too far away. We're going to talk some Giants in depth tomorrow, but quarterback Tommy DeVito, that is up to the Giants to make that decision, make that gamble. If they were to cut him for Tommy Cutlets, if they decide to cut me and I get scooped up, I don't get to make that decision to say afterwards if somebody grabs me, no, I want to stay here. It's everything for the front office. Gamble potentially for the Giants to cut Tommy Cutlets, Michael.
I don't know if it is a gamble. I mean, here's the reality. They were looking for a backup. They tried to sign Tyrod Taylor back, and they brought in Drew Lock, who, they had Tommy DeVito on the team. Now, understanding they need 3, there's no question because of Daniel Jones' health and durability the last 2 seasons or 3 seasons. He played most of the games in 22, but for me, I think Tommy's getting himself a little bit over his skis. It wasn't exactly do you want to go back and go through some of those moments where I think they gained -9 yards against the Jets in passing? Do you remember that?
It's all about the panache, Michael, when you're, I guess, the
panache,
when
yes.
you're a quarterback of Tommy DeVito's ilk. You gotta sell yourself. Look, if this was a team that at least had something to get excited about, roster-wise, you would kind of say, okay, what are you doing here? At least because Tommy DeVito, I think he understands. He's like, yeah, there's really not much here we can go off of for the Giants, so I'm going to make my voice heard. This, to me, most fascinating potential news or notes piece, and you mentioned, to start the show, Brock Purdy struggles yesterday in training camp, few picks there for San Francisco. This was an interview he had with Mike Silver, the San Francisco Chronicle, saying, I want to be dominant. It's having that Tom Brady kind of feeling late in the game. It always felt like Tom was just going to take over and not make it close. I feel like I can get to that. Always ambitious when you throw the Tom Brady name out there when you're a young quarterback like Brock Purdy. Only going to, already the pressure high on a guy who's been so heavily scrutinized, but I thought that was a very interesting quote he gave to one Mike Silver of the San Francisco Chronicle.
I love it because I think there is, when you study him, as good as a year as he had last year, there's room for improvement in terms of accuracy, in terms of his ability with ball location. His decision-making is only going to speed up. He's going to have more rhythm within the framework. Bill Walsh would say, and today we're going to talk about it later in the show, but this is the anniversary of Coach Walsh's death today in 2007, and he would often say, the first year we'll teach the player the system. The second year, in third year, we develop those skills within the system. And I think Purdy's got a lot of room for improvement on top of how good he's actually been. I mean, he's going to get better and better, and Kyle's going to develop more confidence, and you could see it on the tape. We talked yesterday, Ben, about Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur being worried about him. Kyle, if you watch the play calls of the 49ers, he's not worried about Purdy. He's not hiding Purdy from anybody. He hid Jimmy Garoppolo. He didn't hide Purdy. He hasn't hid Purdy.
That's the thing, the air yards, he's still pushing the ball down the field. It's not simply relying on short passes, receivers doing the rest, and the advanced metrics too. Whether you want to look at the tape, whether you want to look at the data, show Purdy was a legit top 5 quarterback across the board last year. People still don't want to talk about him that way. Still, it's more like borderline top 10, but a very, very good, confident quote from Purdy to start training camp.